I'm starting with the tiniest worm I own, but every time I catch a fish, the worm gets bigger. My goal? See just how big of a worm I can get a bass to eat. But here's the problem. Big worms can catch big fish, but they don't always get a lot of bites. So I don't know if I'll even make it up to the biggest one. Can I keep catching fish and level up my bait, or will I fail before I reach the monster worm? Let's find out. Good morning, and I am very excited for today's challenge. Not only am I very excited to fish with some of the baits we have here today, but I'm also going to learn a lot about how big of worms fish will eat, do bigger baits actually catch bigger fish, and really just get to learn a lot about bass behavior. But first, let's go over the rules of today's challenge and how it's going to work. I have quite a few worms right here next to me, and the way it's going to work is we're going to start off with the smallest one. So we have a Berkley 4-inch power worm, one of my favorite baits of all time. Catches so many fish. I've caught a ton of fish on this bait right here, and we'll talk about that in just a second as we go through each of these baits. We're going to start with this one, put it on the hook, and go fish with it. Once we catch a fish, no matter how big or how small, we're going to take this worm off and level up to the next one. So then we will go to the 7-inch power worm that we have here. It's just a sized up version of that bait that we have right there. From there, we're then going to go to a culprit worm. This is an 8.5-inch. They make a 7-inch of this as well, but this is the plus size, which I grabbed because we have the 7-inch power worm already. So this would be the next size up in the lineup. From there, we'll go to the Zoom Old Monster and fish with that. This is a 10.5-inch worm. That's gonna be something that I have caught fish on this before. Some of these worms I have fished with before, and I'm excited to use them again. Some of them I've never used before, and I'm excited to learn how they perform. So the next one after this Old Monster here is going to be the Strike King Zeus worm. This is a 12-inch worm. I have never used a worm this big. I've never used anything bigger than the Old Monster. So this is gonna be the first time I use a worm this big and see if a fish will actually eat it. And then getting to the harder category, the two gigantic worms that I have today. I've never fished either one of these. This is the Bruiser Big Nasty. This thing's 14 inches long. I have no clue if a fish is even gonna eat this thing. And my favorite one of today's challenge, I can't wait to fish with this thing, the Cream Coach Whip. The only thing I know Cream makes is the spinner worm that you see in Walmart. I didn't even know they make a worm this big. This thing is 16 inches long and it is massive. I would love to see if a fish could actually eat this. So first off, we got to get through all these levels to make it up to this one, and then we see if a fish eats it, and if one eats this, it's gonna be a big one. Let me know where you guys think we're gonna end. What's the biggest worm that you think a fish is gonna eat on this boat deck right here? We'll see if you're right at the end of today's video, but for now, we got to get our 4-inch power worm on and get to fishing. And before we kick this off with worm number one, if you could head down below and hit the subscribe button. Only 14% of you that watch the channel are actually subscribed, and I'm trying to reach that 100,000 subscriber goal by the end of the year. So if you could help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get our worm on and get to fishing. All right, let's go ahead and get this challenge started with our first worm here, and that is going to be the 4-inch power worm. I tried to pick all these worms in the same color, something like this blue fleck or a plum. It's just a really good summertime color, that like reddish purple that we got. It works really well this time of year for whatever reason, and it works really well in dirty water, which is what we have today. But to make sure that there's no difference in color or anything like that, holding one worm back from the other, not that this is a worm versus worm challenge, but just to make sure we don't get stuck on a worm because we picked a wrong color or something like that. Now, this is one of my favorite worms I've ever fished with in my entire life. You just Texas rig this up super simply, just like this. Go down to the bend, you pop it out, you run it around, put it up on the hook like this, and then you go ahead and just Texas rig it. We are going to be fishing all of these on a weighted Texas rig. This first one only is going to be on a spinning rod just because this is such a small worm. You kind of have to fish it on a spinning rod. This is how I used to fish it in ponds as a kid all the time. If you fish local ponds, creeks, stuff like that, get you one of these worms. That's one of like the most deadly techniques you can use. 2/0 hook, an 1/8 ounce unpegged weight, and then you just go ahead and fish it right on your spinning rod and catch a ton of fish. It's a super simple setup and technique to fish. The rest of them will be fishing on bait casters with 14-pound test and then 17 for the big worms. Those will all be on a 3/16 ounce weight. So you need a little bit more weight to get that bait down in the water. This one doesn't need a whole lot of weight because it's a very, very small bait. So 1/8 ounce is just fine. But we got it all rigged up. We're ready to roll, and we're gonna see if we can start catching us some fish here. I have no doubt that this is going to be a pretty easy one, to be honest. I feel like this is gonna happen pretty quick on this bait. Like I said, I've caught so many fish in ponds. This is what I used to catch like my first bass of my life on. It was a Rebel Popper and a little 4-inch curly tail worm just like this guy. I caught so many fish in ponds on those 2 baits right there when I was a kid. Creeks, ponds, whatever. You have small bass that are 8, 10, 12, 14 inches long, and they get a ton of pressure on other lures. For some reason, they just love this little curly tail worm. And then to actually fish this worm is super simple. If you're ever gonna try this in your pond or something like this, throw it next to a piece of cover that you like. So I threw it right next to that stick. I'm gonna let this sink all the way down to the bottom. And then there's really 2 ways you can fish it. The way I used to fish it as a kid, I'd reel up my slack till I was tight with the bait, and I would just slowly pull it forward like this and lift my rod up over my head, keeping it on the bottom, and it'll just make that little curly tail twitch back and forth. Or you can kind of hop it like this and it'll dart up and down on the bottom as well. Really, those are the only 2 ways I fish this bait. I really just kind of drag it on the bottom. The slower you can fish it, the more bites you're gonna get, so that's why I really like to do just like the slow drag like this. For whatever reason, this fish can't resist it. The slower you pull it, you just slowly pull it through each piece of cover. And if it happens to go by a fish's face, it's a 4-inch worm. Like, they're just gonna go ahead and pick that up. And you'll get a lot of bites because of that right there. So let's keep working this and see what we can catch. Oh gosh, got fishing line and I broke off. All right, so we just broke off and lost our first worm. That's okay, it happens. We got another one rigged up here, and it's been about 15 minutes. We haven't caught one yet, which I'm kind of surprised at. Although 15 minutes is a pretty short period of time, I thought we would have got one a lot quicker with this worm. It's a pretty easy worm to get bites on, but I'm sure there's one here coming soon that's going to bite this thing. Also, I haven't fished with these power worms in quite some time, and just opening that bag, the smell of power bait, it like reminds me of my childhood so much, fishing with these things all the time. They were cheap, effective, you get 15 in a bag. It was like the best budget bait you could get out there and catch a lot of fish as a kid. No way. How did I do that? It literally just glued itself to that wood. We got that one back at least. We saved a worm. There's one. Uh-oh. No. I had one. He was nibbling me. Yep. Jeez. We're burning through him, but I had a bite. Let's see if we can get him to bite again. No way, he got me again? That's wild. I'm getting this one out of this tree. He bit it again and I lost him. There we go. Got one. And he's got me stuck in all the wood. Oh, got him out finally. Oh my gosh. That one took some work. He's not big, but I kind of expected that from this worm. Like I said, one of my favorite worms to fish with. And it'll catch big ones too. There's no denying that a 4-inch power worm can catch a big fish. But for the most part, you catch a bunch of these guys. But a little 12-incher, not bad. We finally got one. It took us about a half an hour. There were 3 or 4 bites we had in this brush pile here. We just couldn't get them in the boat, but we finally got one and we're on to worm number 2. All right, worm number 2, we get to go to a bait caster now, which is going to feel a lot more comfortable because I can actually control these fish a little bit better and work them out of these wood pieces instead of them getting me all tangled up or breaking me off or doing any of that stuff. I already have my power worm on here ready to go, but we did the same thing. We just Texas rigged it on there. It's another blue fleck power worm, but this is the 7-inch. Maybe we'll catch a little bit bigger fish. This has a 3/16 ounce weight and we have a 4/0 hook on here. So we went up 2 hook sizes just to fit this worm. It fits it nicely, and we'll probably use the same size for the culprit worm if we can get through this bait. But for now, let's get this one in the water and see if we can get us a fish. See how long this one takes. It's about 10:05, so we'll see. That one took about 30 minutes. We'll see how long this one takes. Although I don't really know where the fish are, I'm trying to figure them out too. So that also could be some of the reason on why it took so long to get a bite with that worm. Just so everyone is aware of my guess on where we're gonna stop, I don't think we're gonna get past the big nasty, that 14-inch worm. We're gonna try and do it anyway. We're gonna try and get up to that 16-inch worm. And even if we don't make it up to that big worm, I will take some casts with it. I have to know how that thing works. I have to know how it looks in the water. It's probably gonna look like an enormous snake. I'm so excited to fish with that thing. But first we gotta make it through the easier levels first. So let's get back to it. One of the most undefeated baits in all of bass fishing is the old Texas rig worm. I don't think it'll ever go away. It just always catches fish. And a standard one too, nothing crazy. Literally, I'm talking an unpegged weight, a regular hook, some fluorocarbon, even monofilament line, and a little worm. You'll never beat it. You catch so many fish with that right there. Ooh, there's one. Feels like a fish. Nope, no fish. That was weird. Must have been hung on a branch or something. There's one. Oh, he took my worm. No. I should have set the hook. I let him eat it too long. Our 7-inch power worm. Again, very budget-friendly option here. You get 13 of these in a pack. Great for all kinds of techniques. I actually use the 7-inch worm, a little more versatile than the 4-inch. This works great on a Carolina rig. It's one of my favorite Carolina rig baits out there. Little 7-inch power worm just dragging behind a Carolina rig. You get a lot of bites doing that. There's one. Oh, he took my worm too. They're getting me today. He bit it right in half. Look at that. Half a worm. That is kind of not a good sign for later, because if they can't get a 7-inch worm in their mouth, I don't know how they're gonna get something that's almost 10 inches bigger in their mouth so that we can set the hook and get them in the boat. But maybe we'll just have to find a much larger fish at that point. For now, we just need to get this power worm knocked down so that we can move on to the next. There we go. Got that one. Finally. That one's a little bit bigger, but not much. It's probably a 14-incher. 13-inch fish. She's skinny, but not a bad one. I'm just happy to catch some fish and to get that power worm knocked out. That one was taking a little bit, but oh gosh, fish landing violation. Okay, we got him back. We're gonna throw him back. He's ready to go. See you, buddy. Okay, we got power worm number 2 done. 7-inch power worm. That one is now out of the way. That one also took 30 minutes and it equaled about the same size fish. So far, all about the same. Fish the worm you like, whether you want the bigger worm or the medium size or the small worm. But now let's grab a slightly bigger one. And we are moving on to the Culprit Original Plus, 8.5 inch. The original is the 7-inch. I had mentioned that earlier. And while I have fished with the original, I have never used the Original Plus. This one is in a red shad color because that is the only color that they had in stock when I was getting these worms that was similar to that plum color. And we are going to be putting it on the same 4/0 hook. And again, we are still definitely in budget territory with these baits. You get 12 of these in a pack. I don't remember the price of them, but their culprit worms are pretty affordable. There you go, little 3/16 ounce weight, 4/0 hook. You probably could go up to a 5/0, but we're gonna fish it on the 4/0 and we'll see. Maybe they like the red shad better. That'd be cheating, but it counts because it's the only color they had. They didn't have plum or blue fleck in stock. But first we're gonna get a quick snack in a water and then we're gonna get back to it. Back to work with the red shad culprit worm. I'm gonna start throwing this around and see what happens. This is the first worm I haven't fished in the lineup yet. So I've never actually used the Original Plus. I have used the original many times. It is like the original in Florida, deadly worm. That one in like a June bug color on a Texas rig. If you like to fish in Florida, that's a worm to have down there. I've caught so many fish on the original culprit in a June bug color or like a grape, black grape I think it's called. Any of those purple colors, they love it down there. The action, honestly the action on this is just as good as the original, if not slightly better. Oh no! No, 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 no. That was the dumbest thing I've ever done. I literally threw it in there watched him take all the slack out of the line, and then set the hook before I had it tight with the fish. He ate it on the fall. Let's see if he'll bite it again. There's one. No! No! What am I doing today? He toasted my worm. We're gonna have to get another one. This is definitely gonna be an issue if we lose this many worms as we get into some of the bigger sizes, especially like that coach whip. There's 4 in that bag. So snags, lost fish, ripped worms, that's gonna be an issue. I will say these bigger worms are much more accurate to cast, obviously because they have more weight, but it's making it easier to put it where the fish live and getting more bites, it seems like. There we go. Oh gosh, that was awkward. I thought I was on a log. It's a nice fish. That was awkward. There you go, look at that one. Getting a little bit bigger. That is definitely a much larger fish. That's probably about 1.5 pounds, or we'll weigh her. This one can go on the scale. Ate the worm really good. Ate it like right off the surface, which was weird. I was pulling it, I thought it was in a log, and then I saw a fish swirl, yanked the rod out of my hands, and we got her. Not a gigantic one, but definitely an upgrade from the 2 we've caught so far for the 8.5-inch worm. Let's see how much she weighs. We'll throw her on the scale. 185, almost a 2-pounder. Not bad for the 8.5-inch worm. I'd be happy to catch a bunch of those all day. We're gonna throw her back and it's on to the next. Okay, now we are on to one of my favorite summertime fishing worms here. And while I do already have this guy rigged up, we just killed the culprit worm right there. And we are on to the 10.5-inch Zoom Old Monster there. We do have this one in plum. They had that one in stock. The 10.5-inch is the one that I fished before. They have the Magnum Old Monster and they have the Mag 2. I've fished the Mag 2, I fished the Old Monster, but I've never fished the Magnum Old Monster. But we got the Zeus worm instead for that 12-inch bait, just to try something a little bit different. This is one of my favorite summertime fishing lures. I catch so many fish every year in the summer on a 10.5-inch worm like this. Now you don't get as many bites, but you usually catch some bigger fish. Little ones will eat it too. I've caught plenty of 12-inchers on this bait, but this is the last worm in the lineup that I have fished before. I've never fished a worm bigger than this one, so I do believe we will catch fish on this. I don't think it will be as hard either. That one took about another 30 minutes, so we've had 30 minutes for each of the easy rounds. Oh, I thought I had one. We got snagged. First cast. But easy rounds, this 4-inch, 7-inch, 8.5-inch worm took about 30 minutes each. We got this Magnum Old Monster on, or the regular Old Monster on now, and we're gonna see how long it takes to get one of these on. And you might even get a bonus and get to see me rig one up because I got this snagged already. Yep, broke it. That's okay. We shall retie. So for this one, I'm using the same 3/16 ounce weight. Let me grab one of these. But we do have to increase the hook size a little bit. So we are going up to a 5/0 hook here. Just because of how large this worm is, you kind of have to fish a bigger hook to be able to get a good hook on these fish. They'll grab the worm tail first and they'll kind of just chew on it. And while if you fished a smaller hook, you'd get technically more action out of the worm, as they work their way up the worm, if they can't get all the way up into the hook, then you'll miss fish. And you'll actually see now when I start getting bites, I'm really gonna let these fish start eating this bait because they might start and grab the tail back here, then they'll choke up on it, then they'll choke up on it, and then they'll eventually get the whole bait in their mouth and be able to get hooked. The bigger the worm you have, the longer you have to let these fish eat this bait. On the 4-inch worm, if they're picking it up, it's probably already in their mouth. But on a worm like this, they can pick up just the tail and you'll often set the hook and bring back just half of the worm or stuff like that. And when you're doing that, it's because they're eating that bait and they're starting tail first and not making the way all the way up to the hook, or you have too small of a hook in your bait for the size of worm that you're fishing. So they're only getting the portion of the worm that doesn't have a hook in it. Let's see if we can get one to bite this. I don't know if there'll be a second one on this brush pile or not. And then we will venture out into the middle of the lake where I see these two gigantic logs all sitting by themselves out there. I think there should be some fish on that out there, especially this time of year. But first, let's fish this pretty thoroughly. Did one just eat that off the pad stem? Yes, it did. That was crazy. I literally tossed that up there and watched him eat it right off the surface. It was on a pad stem and he came up and just swirled on it. There we go. Another one. That one was much quicker on the 10-inch worm, probably just because we landed on a spot that had multiple fish and I could just catch both of them at the same time. That one only took me 6 minutes and we retied for probably half of that. This one also is not as big of a fish, and that's what I mean by this summertime deal. Honestly, they just like to eat bigger worms this time of year because they need a big meal to keep going. You can see how skinny that fish is. They need to eat a lot of food to keep themselves full and happy and healthy throughout the summer when it's this hot. They're just burning a lot of energy swimming around and doing all of that. That one's not giant. We'll throw her on the scale too just because. But so far, the culprit worm has caught the biggest fish. Doesn't mean it's the best. It might have just been that I threw it right in front of a big one and caught it. 128, so 1.25 pounds for that guy. The other one was almost 2 pounds, but not a bad fish. Going back, big worms can catch small fish too. Don't be afraid to fish them in the summertime. They catch a lot of big fish. But now it is on to uncharted territory. We need to get a much bigger worm on here to find some much bigger fish. Let's get this guy off here. I think I'm gonna have to go to a bigger hook, and then the last one I'm gonna have to go to an even bigger hook. So let's get this worm off, and I'm gonna take this 5/0 off, and I'm gonna put a 6/0 on there. I think that's gonna be a little bit better for this 12-inch worm. Like I said, I don't want them eating the hook or eating the worm and not getting to the hook. So we have our Zeus worm, which is also in a plum. This thing is enormous. I will not lie to you. And a lot of it is actually in the bulk of the worm. The curly tail is actually about the same size as the old monster. You can see that right there. This is the old monster, this is the other one. It's maybe an inch longer, but the extra 2 inches is up here in the actual worm itself. That thing is giant compared to that other worm. I've never fished with a worm this big or the Zeus worm in general. We're gonna get this thing rigged up and out there, and we're gonna see if we can get one on this gigantic worm, which, funny enough, is not even gigantic. I would say this is still medium difficulty. I think this is definitely gonna be a possibility here. But I mean, look at that. That is ridiculous. And that hook is all the way up here, so getting a fish to actually eat that entire worm all the way up to there, that's gonna be our biggest problem. So let's see what happens. I think there's like 8 of these in the pack though, so hopefully we can get a couple. Even if we miss some, we got some second chances. That thing literally looks like a snake. Let's see if I can get it on camera here. Look at that. That thing is large, and it's not even the biggest one we got. Let's get her out there. I got a bite. He still has it. I'm gonna let him eat it. Oh gosh. We have a bite. No, that was the worry right there. He had the bait and he did not have the hook in his mouth. But I literally got bit on my first cast with this worm. So maybe they're liking the bigger worm better. With it being summer, they might want a bigger meal. We're gonna try and drag it back through there again. We're gonna really have to let these fish eat this bait if we're gonna get a good hookup on these. I mean, I let him have that for probably 3 or 4 seconds and he still didn't even have it. I don't think they'll be able to like fully swallow this worm where I'd have to cut the hook. That's what I don't wanna have happen. I don't wanna let them eat it so long that they end up just swallowing it and I gotta give them a hook because I was letting them eat it for a video or something like that. I don't think they're gonna be able to swallow this thing all the way down to the point that I'm not gonna be able to get my hook out of them. So I think we're gonna let one eat it the next time it bites for a good while and see if we can get them hooked. Well, no takers out there on those logs. I thought there'd be some fish on that for sure. Had a couple little nibbles, but they just couldn't get the bait in their mouth. Actually, look, one bit my tail off which is exactly what I expected to have happen with this worm. In order to make this not cheating, I'm gonna have to take this worm off and put another one on. I'll save this just in case I run out, but I'm gonna have to use a different worm here. But we're gonna make a little move down to a little bit deeper water and see if we can find some more fish. Is that a fish? I do believe it is. Let's see if we can get him. Oh, we got one. No way. Look at how small this fish is. No way. On a 12-inch worm. That's insane. Look at that fish. I mean, that worm is as long as he is. That's insane. Got one on the 12-inch Zeus worm. I didn't even feel him bite it. I'm gonna throw him back real quick. I literally didn't even feel that fish bite it. I was just dragging it and it slowly just started swimming to the right, and then you could start to feel the tail kicking, so I could tell he had picked it up. But that is crazy. That was literally a 13-inch bass and it ate a worm this big. Took about 30 minutes. I mean, seems to be the standard. I didn't expect it to be that easy though. I expected it to be a little bit harder than that, but now we're on to the 2 hard worms. So we're gonna take a quick break for lunch, and then we're gonna get back to it, and we're gonna see if we can get one on the 14 and the 16-inch. We're gonna need some bigger fish if that's gonna be the case. Although if a 13-inch fish can eat a 12-inch worm, we only need to find a 17-inch fish and we'll be good. It is time for hard mode. We now have 2 worms left. They are the 2 biggest worms I have ever seen or fished with in my entire life, and we're gonna try and put them to work and catch some monster fish, hopefully. We will not be able to use this 6/0 hook that we've been using for that 12-inch worm, so we're gonna have to grab our 7/0, and hopefully that is big enough because it's the biggest one I got. This is the biggest hook I've ever fished with too, besides shark fishing. I do a lot of shark fishing down in Florida. We're using like 10 and 12-aught circle hooks. It's awesome. Let me know, would you guys ever want to see a shark fishing video down in Florida or saltwater in general? I do a lot of it when I'm down there. I just never film it and show it to you guys because I pretty much only post bass videos. But if you'd like to see some of that stuff, let me know. I will gladly do a shark fishing video. They are my favorite species in the entire world to fish for. Also, let me know if you guys are enjoying these challenges. I'm having a ton of fun doing these, and I'd love to keep doing them, especially on stuff that you guys want to see. Whether it's a bait, a budget, a species, let me know. We can make it happen. I'd love to film any of that stuff, but for now, we got to get this gigantic worm on here. This thing is a lot thicker than the worms we've been fishing too, which is probably going to cause a little bit of an issue because then the fish feel a little bit more threatened by it, but it holds the hook a lot better. This thing is meaty. Get that Texas rigged up on there. This 7/0 is way too small. I mean, this would be like throwing a 1/0 hook in an old monster. Like, it is just so small, it's unbelievable. The hook is all the way up here, and they got all this that they can get. I have a feeling we're gonna get a lot of tail biters on this. We do only have 5 of these, so we have 5 of these worms, 4 of the other ones. We're gonna have to be very careful, conservative, try and let these fish eat it the best they can, and hopefully get them in the boat. But for now, let's get it right back on this little rock pile here and see if there's a second taker. What's she look like in the water? Also looks like a snake. The tail actually on this one, it's a lot thicker because of the way the plastic is, and it swims slower. It doesn't have like that rapid vibration. It has like a big flowing movement to it. Not that that's gonna make a difference on anything, but it's just interesting that sometimes the way the plastic is poured into these baits, they act differently in the water. Even though they're both ribbon tail worms, they're gonna have 2 entirely different actions because of how thin or thick the plastic is or the type of plastic that they use. So we're just gonna slowly drag this on this rock pile and pray that there's a 2-pounder or 3-pounder down there that wants to eat this, because that's about the only way I'm getting a bite on this thing. This is about where I thought we would stop. I know for a fact it's gonna be really tough to catch one on this. We may get some bites on it, but it's gonna be really tough to catch a fish with this. And then the coach whip, I'm hoping we can actually get through this just because I want to fish that coach whip. But I have no clue with that thing. It is massive, even compared to this 14-inch worm. Oh gosh, well, I have a fish on. No! No! I had a bite. I don't want to break it off because we only have 4 left, but I don't want to ruin this spot either. It seems like there's some fish down there that are biting. I actually had one bite it. Oh my gosh. Let's break it. I don't want to ruin it. Oh gosh. All right, back in we go. Go, gigantic worm. Come on. I just retied that. Okay. I gotta go get this one because I can't lose a million of them. Oh, it came out. Cool. We're out. Got hung up again. We're gonna have to go ruin this spot. And then we will move on to another one. Hopefully we can find more that wants to eat this big worm. One thing to note with this, as I've got to this larger sized worm, it's actually become a little bit more difficult to throw and be accurate with. It still has that mass to fly through the air and kind of go where you want it to, but just how heavy it is, it's a little hard to be accurate, and the way it flies through the air by like twirling in the air, it doesn't really land quite where you want it. Granted, this is probably not a type of worm that you're gonna be flipping and pitching with like I'm going to do with it today. It's more of a type of worm that you would find on an offshore spot with giant fish in like Texas or something, or Florida. You'd throw it out there on those offshore places. Do I have a fish? No, I had the wood. Oh, I got excited. You'd throw it on those offshore places and just drag it really slowly, but your goal is to make a really far cast, not to be accurate with it. And you definitely can make a very far cast with this because it weighs a lot. Oh no, we got one, we got one. We got one on it. What? He ate it. That's insane. That is insane. He actually got hooked outside the mouth because the worm is too big. That's crazy. He's one of the smallest ones we've caught all day. The worm is as big as he is. That is crazy. Look at this. Look at the size of that fish versus that worm. I mean, I guess I could use the worm as a ruler. He's about 14 inches. That's crazy. 14-incher, we're gonna throw him back. And it's on, he had a little jump left in him. It's on to the coach whip. I can't believe we're actually fishing with this bait. I can't believe we made it past the gambler already. Or the bruiser. This is a bruiser bait, not a gambler bait. I can't believe we just made it past this bait. But let's get the big boy out and get it done. So, as we mentioned, we only have 4 of these, and we have the biggest hook we own on right now of the 7/0. So we're gonna have to be very careful. Hopefully fish don't rip the tails off, and hopefully they'll actually get the bait in their mouth. But the problem is, here's the worm I was just throwing. That is just a much bigger version of like a Zoom Old Monster. This is the new worm. Look at how thick that tail is. I mean, that tail is probably 3 times the thickness of the tail on this. I don't know how it's gonna swim in the water. We're gonna find out in just a second. But the body of the worm is about the same size. So what I'm hoping is, with that 7/0 hook, is that they're not gonna go for the tail because it's so large, might draw them over to it, and then they're gonna bite the head, and that's where the hook will be. So if they can go head first, that's gonna give me my best chance to land a fish on this. Ideally, something in that 2 to 3 pound class range is also gonna give me the best chance to land a fish on this. But just for some size reference, here is where we started today, earlier this morning. That was the first worm, the 4-inch. That's where we're at now. Quite a size difference. It is an absolutely huge size difference between these. And honestly, the fish have been biting all these worms equally. That one took the longest at about an hour, but I did a little bit of a move. I re-rigged some stuff like that, so it took a little bit longer to actually get through that. Let's Texas rig this thing up on here, see how ridiculous this looks because of this little baby hook. Baby hook, it's a 7/0, but it is a baby hook for this bait. We're gonna throw this thing up on here, Texas rig that. This plastic is very stiff, so I don't know how well this is gonna swim. It is also vibrant red. I mean, that thing's giant. All right, let's put all these worms away and let's get this thing out there. And it's time to finish this challenge. We just need one more bite. Gotta do the action check. Wow. That looks like a literal snake. So the funny thing is that actually only the back quarter of the worm twists. The portion, all of this obviously doesn't move, but everything up until here doesn't move. This is all that moves back here. This little straight part right here doesn't actually have any action. It's just extended off the worm, but it's the same shape as the paddle tail. So I don't know how this is gonna go. This thing weighs a lot, and we're gonna start casting at this cover and see what we can do. That is insane. It's so big. It's so large. How is a fish gonna eat this? I'm gonna have to put this in front of like a 3-pounder. It's literally the only way I'm gonna get a bite on this. There's no way that I'll catch something that's like 15 inches on this bait. Oh, I have a bite. I have a bite. I knew that was gonna happen. I knew he wasn't gonna have that. He probably only had like a tiny, tiny bit of that worm. I actually had one bite it. That is insane. That's the first step. We had one bite it. This is another one of the, there's no way they could swallow this. No way there's a fish that could literally swallow this down entirely. So I'm just gonna have him hold it, give him some line, almost like live bait fishing. Just let him keep running with it until he decides that he has it deep enough that I can set the hook. That's gotta be the plan. It's the only way. This worm is not easy. I've only had that one bite so far, and that's it. I should have let that fish eat it a lot longer. I probably would have been done with the challenge already. But I'm so used to just setting the hook when you have a bite, I kind of just yanked on him. Oh, bite, 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 bite. No way, no way, no way, no way. Come on. Do not come off. Do not come off. Do not come off. Yes, I did it. Oh my gosh. Look at the size of this fish. Oh my gosh. We caught one on the giant worm. That's insane. We did it. We did it. We caught one on every worm in the lineup. Look at that. What was he thinking? That's literally a snake. It's longer than he is. I don't know if you can see that. It goes past his tail. It's a 15-inch bass and it ate a 16-inch worm. That's amazing. We're gonna let him go real quick before he gets overheated out here in the sun, but that is incredible. I can't believe we got that done. Thank you, buddy, for biting. You were not a big one, but thank you. That was amazing, guys. I can't believe that we actually had one bite it. I literally let him just sit on that thing and eat it, eat it, eat it, and then he finally got it deep enough that I could get a hook into him. Overall, we caught fish on every single one of the worms in the lineup today. Now there are some larger straight tail worms on Tackle Warehouse, but we did just the curly tail worms today. If you'd like to get any of this gear, it'll all be linked in the description below so you can check any of it out. If you want to try any of these or the challenge for yourself, buy a bag of each and go see if you can catch one on each one of these worms. Overall, I think the best one that I used was the culprit and the Zoom Old Monster. I would use the power worms again just because they're childhood baits. They catch a bunch of fish. If you fish in ponds, those are great ones. And the Zeus worm was an excellent one as well. But for all around fishing, if I'm going to be using a curly tail worm, that culprit worm and the Old Monster would probably be my two favorites. Those also caught probably the two biggest fish of the day today. This one right here, I would probably go fish for some gigantic fish like 10-pounders, not the 1-pounder we just caught on this, but it still catches fish. Overall, I had a great time doing this challenge. It was a ton of fun, and if you'd like to see another challenge on my channel, check this video out right here. Hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.